and welcome to Community Pulse, a CAN TV program featuring local leaders and organizations focused on improving health and well-being in the city of Chicago. Community Pulse is presented by the Foxglove Alliance, a public health coalition supported by the Hectone Institute of Medicine in partnership with the Healthcare Council of Chicago, managed by Third Horizon, and Hectone's Nurses and the Humanities. My name is Meghan Phillipp, one of the rotating hosts of Community Pulse and the Executive Director of the Healthcare Council of Chicago. It's a real pleasure today to dive into two of my biggest passions, music and health. So joining me today is Katie Grennan, who serves as the Executive Director of Sharing Notes and happens to be an incredible performing artist in her own right. So Katie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Meghan. I'm thrilled to be here.
It's just wonderful to dive into the great work that you're doing at Sharing Notes. So let's look back at, when Sharing Notes started a decade ago. What was the initial idea and inspiration that created this nonprofit platform to connect musicians to healthcare?
Great question. We were actually founded by a student at the time named Allegra Montanari. She was a cello student studying to be a professional at Roosevelt University. And she really just wanted to make more of an impact with her music. And she had the idea about halfway through her career as an undergraduate that she wanted to really create a student group that would bring music to people and communities that needed it the most. So she had a few ideas that she brought to the table and brought to one of her advisors. And it developed into a student group that would go often to Lurie Cancer Center to bring music to those patients. And it really took off from there. So when she graduated, she didn't want to leave the work that she was doing. So she founded a nonprofit a few years later that turned into Sharing Notes. And really the rest is history. We've been going ever since. And we've played for over 40,000 patients, staff, and families around the Chicagoland area.
That's just tremendous. So how did some of the initial visits and partnerships evolved into multiple hospitals now that you serve? If you want to share a couple of those. I know that you still partner with Lurie, which is wonderful. But how have you continued to expand upon the model?
Yeah, so Lurie was obviously the first hospital that we went to, which is connected with Northwestern Medicine. So through that initial connection, we were able to develop relationships with other contacts at the various Northwestern hospitals. And we're actually partnered currently with almost half of all of Northwestern's hospitals around the Chicagoland area, both in the city and in the surrounding suburbs. One of the other early hospitals that we went to back at the start of Sharing Notes was La Rabida Children's Hospital. And that's turned into our longest standing partnership. We have maintained a presence there at least twice a month ever since we partnered with them. So that's been really incredible to see that program grow and develop. And then some of the other partnerships have happened organically. We just started a partnership with Ascension St. Joseph's Hospital last year, which actually happened just through a connection from a patron who attended one of our fundraisers. And he used to volunteer at that hospital and said, oh, you got to meet the volunteer coordinator. She's amazing. She also used to, she studied music when she was an undergraduate. And so we started a relationship with them, and that has grown into one of our most frequently visited hospitals, which is amazing. It's right in Lakeview, so it's easy for a lot of our musicians to get to. And then we also just started a partnership with a senior living facility, assisted living out in LaGrange called Plymouth Place. And that also happened through a connection, an organic connection that I've had through music named Jim Dewan, who's a great guitarist, and he books a lot of the music there, and he thought that Sharing Notes would really fit into their mission. And it's been really, really great to kind of bring our music and our programming elsewhere besides hospitals, which is obviously the bread and butter of what we do.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, the real mission of Sharing Notes is focused on improving the quality of life for patients and now seniors that are living in the center at Plymouth Place through live music. So what does that look like in practice, and how do you see it making a difference for patients and families and the hospital staff?
Yeah, so we really place an emphasis on moving beyond the traditional performance or recital format, and we have an emphasis on our repertoire that we give to our musicians and encourage them to brush up on. So we have repertoire that really fits the age group that they're performing for, whether they're performing for seniors, whether they're performing for babies, for kids. And we really place a lot of emphasis as well on the connection and the personalized interactions between the musician and the patient. We know that those patients that we're playing for, a lot of them have chronic illness and they're receiving treatment for that, or they've just undergone extensive surgeries, and their days are really long and grueling, and our musicians understand that. So we really want our musicians to take an empathetic approach to what they're doing when they go into these hospitals. And we've even been told by hospital staff over the years that they can really see a difference in their patients' dispositions after our musicians play for them, whether it's in a group setting or individualized setting. And sometimes even their breathing rate or their heart rates have improved. So that's really great feedback for us as well.
That's just tremendous. So Sharing Notes has served many patients and family members and staff, even in 2023, over 1,000. So can you share a memorable moment for you as someone that also participates and really illustrates what the impact is within the organization to the constituents?
Absolutely. I'm actually going to share a quote from our program director, Lauren, who's a wonderful harpist. And she has a story. So on her very first Sharing Notes visit, she walked around the corner with her harp, and a woman stopped her in awe. And she was so moved because her daughter had been a very serious harpist. She was in the hospital because her husband had suddenly been hospitalized for brain cancer a day or two before. They were just about to take him into chemotherapy, and she played for them just for a minute at that time. But they actually reached out to her and asked if she would be willing to come back the following weekend, which she did. She had the pleasure of playing for them and for their daughter. And as she played, her father woke up from his whatever he was undergoing, and he was responsive for the first time since his previous treatment. And she said that moment will never leave her, and makes her remember really what an amazing opportunity every single Sharing Notes musician has to touch someone's life, and why she's so thankful to Sharing Notes for facilitating these connections. And so many of our musicians have had experiences similar to that, including myself.
That's just tremendous. I mean, just that one example it feels so small in nature for that one-to-one connection, but it's just the one to the many and the many people that you have played for that the impact is probably even longer lasting than we'll ever be able to measure. But I'm just so grateful to hear that story.
Yeah, and even at La Rabida Children's Hospital, a lot of those patients are there for quite a while. So some of our musicians will get to see the same patient time after time, and they'll remember what songs or pieces they like, and they'll even sometimes learn the pieces that they requested the week before that they might not know and bring them back to them. Taylor Swift is a big hit at her music is a big hit at La Rabida, so a lot of our musicians that frequent that hospital, they make sure to learn some of her
That's
songs.
very hip.
Yeah.
Actually, when you were telling me that it was like appropriate for ages, I thought there were a little bit more like children's lullabies and things like that. But kids are more hip than I am.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. Well, some of these are
Not some of
tweens
the
and teens.
Sesame Street jingles that I remember.
Yeah.
But that's really great. I mean, I think that's also speaks to the way that the organization remains flexible to meeting the need, and what you're staying true to your mission of what you're trying to deliver is not just like, trying to force feed music, which can be so vast in genres and experiences, but to really meet the needs of those patients and people that you're serving.
Absolutely. Yeah, we do have an extensive catalog of music that we have on iPads or on sheet music that people can check out and bring to their performances.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what's the feedback been from, not only just from your volunteers and the musicians, but what's been the experience from patients and hospitals and staff with their experiences, and both in person and virtually, because you have kind of expanded the model?
Yes. We've received some really wonderful feedback over the years. I'm going to share another testimonial from Meghan Constantine. She's a childhood life specialist at La Rabida. And she says that sharing notes has been therapeutic for our patients and families as they've created an environment for our patients and families to sing, to dance, and connect with others. There are not enough words to express our appreciation towards sharing notes as they continue to share their talents with patients, whether it's going room to room or putting on a performance to get multiple patients and families together. Sharing notes has helped create an enjoyable atmosphere for our patients, our families, and staff, and we look forward to every time they visit. And we've worked with Meghan quite a lot over the years, so we really value her feedback. And it's great to have these connections at hospitals that we work with week after week and really develop those as time goes on.
That's amazing. Yeah. So with more than 160 hours of music performed last year, what are some of the challenges you faced in expanding the reach and maintaining that quality and intimacy of the performances? It sounds like you have a curated catalog of how you're really coaching and supporting the musicians with having the right materials to do what they can bring to the table. What other sort of training and opportunities do you have to kind of wrap around and make sure that these experiences remain unique?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges that we face as an organization is really dealing with the various hospitals' requirements. So every hospital has their own set of requirements that they mandate for volunteers or guests to come in, and it's quite a range. So some are pretty light, others are very extensive, and that has been a challenge because when musicians join Sharing Notes, we put them through our own training and our own vetting process that is standardized for all of our musicians. But then, we're partnered with 7 or 8 facilities at this point. So if a musician wants to go between all those different facilities, they actually have to go through every single onboarding process with each hospital. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach unless they're within the same system, like Northwestern. Sure. And even then, it varies between hospitals sometimes.
Yeah.
So we've tried to make it as easy as we can on our musicians. And not cutting corners, but coming up with solutions with some of the hospitals to make it just a little bit less challenging or time intensive. But it takes a lot, and we've lost, or we've had some attrition rates from the initial contact of musicians that want to do this to the point that they're actually physically in the hospital. I always say that was one of the most surprising things for me when I came on board as executive director, because it takes hours and hours and hours sometimes to prepare just one musician to go in to do their one performance. So we really want to make sure our musicians feel valued. We send them a little gift card to thank them for the time that it takes to go through this process. But we want to make sure our musicians are able to go back and perform at the same hospitals, just because it does take so much time to get them prepared and so much effort.
Yeah. I assume that some of this, it is hard. I mean, I think that of all the industries, having worked with many healthcare stakeholders myself, they just have to navigate a lot more things that are affected to their patients. But to your point, I think on the flip side, it's like we're trying to do something helpful and meaningful. We can't just like swing in the door.
Yeah.
So it's like this two-sided coin of like, we want to make sure patients are safe and that Absolutely. They have everything that they need and that the hospital has standards. But I hope that it sounds like you have, under your leadership, really helped them evolve some of those thinkings to make sure that there's an ease to this step.
Absolutely. And then one of the other challenges we face, which is actually a good problem, is we used to have a problem where we needed more musicians to sign up. And sometimes we'd have to tell the hospital, oh, you know what, we didn't have any musicians sign up for this week. We're sorry. But over the last couple of years, our program has grown so much, and we've strengthened our core base of volunteers that we actually have more volunteers sometimes than slots available to perform. So that's a good problem, and we're working on adding more slots in all of our hospitals so that the musicians who really want to perform are able to get their signups in. And we're kind of relieved that that switched.
Yeah, that's tremendous.
Thanks.
And I already kind of alluded to the fact that you offer both in-person and virtual concerts. I assume that a lot of this influence was, the pandemic pushed us all to be virtual.
Absolutely.
So how did that come about, and have you learned any of the different ways that music can be delivered to patients, and how do the musicians adapt to that?
Yeah, so the pandemic absolutely was the reason for us turning our programming back in 2020 to only virtual. I mean, leading up to that, we were literally an organization that was based on musicians going into hospitals. So it was a real challenge to really have to switch gears so quickly. It was obviously a crazy and unprecedented time, but we were able to work with some of the hospitals that we were already partnered with and develop a virtual program, which did become very popular with some of our musicians. So even, 4.5 years later since that initial March 2020, some of those programs have maintained, and some of our musicians absolutely love it, especially musicians who are students. So we're actually partnered with Northwestern Medical Orchestra, which is literally an orchestra made up of all students at Northwestern who are medical students.
That's awesome.
Which is wild, and I didn't know that existed until
I didn't know either. That's amazing. Good for them. I mean, dual talent of being medical professionals and having a musical talent.
I know. It's pretty incredible. But though our program's really popular with them, obviously because it's a really great mission fit. But you can imagine those students are extremely busy, so they love the fact that they can just hop on Zoom or FaceTime for 30 minutes or an hour and still perform and share their talents and share their gifts and connect with patients from the comforts of their dorm room or their apartment. And one of the other things that was kind of a silver lining to the pandemic was that we were able to get some volunteers who don't live in Chicago. So we have musicians now, sometimes based in New York. We actually have one who's a Broadway star, and a few other musicians that live all over, and they're still able to be part of Sharing Notes and perform for Chicagoland area patients, but they don't necessarily have to live here. And one of the other things that we've heard great feedback on every now and again is that sometimes pets will make an appearance. So there'll be a dog or cat on screen, and the patients absolutely love seeing those furry friends. And so I guess you could say we're maybe even giving some unintentional pet therapy to patients through our virtual program.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of silver linings to that.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So, I've heard you even already sort of showcased some of the different partnerships that help you recruit the different musicians. Mm-hmm. But how do you select the musicians to ensure they're not just talented performers, but that they're also engaging in that sensitivity to the patients? And it sounds like there is some synergies between the medical field and music.
Absolutely.
And so, some of the other musicians that aren't necessarily in the Northwestern Orchestra, how do they find you guys, and how have you continued to make sure that they're the right fit, and what is that vetting process?
Absolutely. So there's a few steps. You alluded to and you mentioned some of the partnerships. So we were partnered with about 10 different organizations around the city. One that comes to mind is Old St. Pat's music ministry. So again, those musicians are already vetted. They have to go through an audition process with Old St. Pat's. So if it's coming from something like that, then we don't necessarily have to audition them, but we do have a way that musicians can just apply on our website. And it's just a simple video where they play for a few minutes or sing if they're singers. And Lauren and I, since we're both musicians, we vet them on a musical level. And if they are of a certain standard, then we invite them to a training that Lauren runs. And that training goes through our mission. It goes through a lot of, in great detail about the certain situations that these musicians might find themselves in, because it's completely different than what they're used to, the environment that they're performing in. And we give them the necessary tools that they can use to react with sensitivity, and just really make sure that they're prepared for what they're going into, so that they can give the best visit possible.
Yeah, that's tremendous. I mean, it's not the same as walking into a bar or even a lovely venue, but this is a very unique and vulnerable place that people
Yes.
are in. So I think that sensitivity and the training and the vetting makes a lot of sense. And it really sounds like, I think that even the people that probably sign up and want to be doing this probably have something that's innate in them that wants to be helping and contributing through the talent that they have.
Absolutely. And even things that you might not even think about, such as the volume that you're playing at or the type of repertoire that you're playing. Even if you're playing something slow, it's not like the best time to try out your new concerto that you're preparing for your recital. And just reminding musicians of that, because some people can just be in one view of what they're doing. And it just allows musicians to, I think, view their music with a little bit more empathy and really kind of take themselves out of the task at hand.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So as the executive director, what are some of your goals for the future of Sharing Notes, and how do you envision, the sustainability and expansion of the organization's mission?
Yeah, so my first goal is to continue and maintain our programming at existing hospitals that we're partnered with, and expand within those hospitals. So it ranges from every other month at certain hospitals, or some hospitals were there every other week. But I would love to get to the point that we're at the existing hospitals at least every other week or once a week. We're right now performing about 5 to 6 hours weekly of music, which is actually double from what we were at about 2 or 3 years ago. So I'm really pleased with that, but I would love to get to the point that we're performing about 10 hours of music a week, which I think is very achievable within the hospitals that we're already partnered with, as well as a new partnership that we're starting with Rush University through our connection with Gilda's Club Chicago. Gilda's Club is another nonprofit that focuses on care and support to cancer patients and their families. And they've been instrumental in connecting us with some of the partnerships that we have. So I'm looking forward to seeing where that Rush partnership goes. And then one of my other goals is to continue to increase the pay that we're giving musicians. When I started as executive director 2 years ago, we weren't paying our musicians at all for anything, for their travel time, for the time that they perform, or for their onboarding process. And I made it a goal to give everyone a stipend, a small stipend for every time they do something for Sharing Notes. And it's not at a full gig fee, but I would eventually love to get it up to a higher rate, just because I understand the amount of time it takes, not only as a musician to get to the level and quality that we're looking for, but the amount of time it's taking out of their day to perform, whether it's in a morning or an afternoon. I want our musicians to know that we really value them. And we so appreciate the work that they're doing, because without them, we would not be an organization.
Yeah, that's amazing. Mm-hmm. So in a world where healthcare and the arts are facing significant challenges, what role do you see Sharing Notes playing in bridging these two important fields?
Yeah, I mean, our main mission, of course, is to bring joy and comfort to hospital patients around the Chicagoland area through live music. But we also, I think, provide a unique situation and service to musicians who are looking to grow as performers and as humans, really, to be able to, like I said earlier, take yourself out of a situation that you're used to performing in, such as a recital or a concert, and really bringing your music into a situation where people really need it and they're yearning for some sort of connection. It only helps develop I think our musicians' empathy and really just connecting with people on a different level that they might not necessarily have had before.
That's awesome. So how can our viewers connect with your organization, both as musicians that want to volunteer or just folks like me that want to support?
Absolutely. So you can go to our website, www.sharing-notes.org. We're also on Facebook and Instagram, so you can check us out at Sharing Notes. We like to post pictures and videos from performances in hospitals, of course, with patient and staff consent. We also feature our amazing roster of musicians quite often, just showing off what they can do. We have a few benefits coming up. So we have a fundraiser at Cliff Dwellers downtown. Tickets are on sale for that on Eventbrite, and you can also find that information on our website. That is on October 16th in the evening. And then we've in the last couple of years have hosted an annual Christmas concert at the Galway Arms in Lincoln Park, and that's a benefit for Sharing Notes as well. And that this year is on December 22nd, and it always sells out. So if you're interested, have a look and get your ticket. It's so much fun. We play a lot of Christmas classics and add some Irish music in too.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I, as one of the Irish folks and I'm an appreciator of Irish music, I think I might be there. So
Oh, okay. Well,
hopefully
we'll see you
some of you will see us there. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you, Katie, and
Thank
I'm
you,
just so
Megan.
appreciative of the work that all of the musicians and your team are doing to bring Sharing Notes to patients and populations that need that uplifting. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Want to wrap us up and say a special thanks to CAN TV's nonprofit services for their support in producing today's program. My name is Meghan Phillipp. Thanks for watching Community Pulse, which airs on CAN TV Channel 21 and is available for streaming at cantv.org. Stay well, Chicago. We'll see you next time.